Update. I think my boyfriend is lying about being in medical school. Original story. I, 26 female, have been dating Sam, 31 male, for about 4 months now. We met online, and he told me he was going to be a doctor. The first 2 months were fine, but the last 2 months I have started to feel like he hasn't been honest about several aspects of his life, the biggest being him in medical school. He used to live overseas and was in medical school there for a short time. I'm pretty sure this is true because I've seen pictures. But that was about 5 years ago. The school that he says he goes to is fairly prestigious. And I have another friend, Jason, who graduated with a medical degree from the same school. Jason has told me how difficult the program was and how he never had time for anything besides studying. Jason also said that nobody in his program worked. Sam works 40 hours a week in an office, and I've never once seen him study. He always seemed to have a completely open schedule to hang out all the time, which I thought was odd. I asked him why he never is studying. He said he doesn't need to. I was always a good test taker. I never studied a lot in college, but I still feel like medical school is a whole different ballgame. I've spent a lot of time at Sam's house, and I've never seen a single document suggesting he was in school. Textbooks, assignments, nothing. He also has let me use both of his computers, and I've never seen anything on his history or anything suggesting anything to do with school. I don't know about you guys, but when I was in school, I had papers all over my house, and my computer always had school stuff on it. A few weeks ago, we were at dinner, and I can't remember how this was brought up, but I mentioned that the human ear has 30-something bones in it. I know from high school biology that it has only 3 bones, so I said it was wrong. He said something to the effect of, "I'm a medical student. How are you going to tell me I'm wrong?" So I googled it right in front of him and showed him that I was correct, and he seemed mad. I then asked him how many bones were in the human body, and he was wrong again. I feel like this is pretty basic stuff a medical student would know, right? Even I know that. So this week I've been feeling suspicious, so I decided to prod. I asked him if I could come sit in one of his classes. I decided school doesn't do that. Fine. I asked if we could meet up on campus for lunch. I decided I couldn't come because you need a student ID to get on campus due to COVID. Fine. Then I asked to see a student ID. I decided I lost it. Then I asked him if he could send me a selfie of him in his hospital uniform. I decided he doesn't like the way he looks in a white coat. He sends me other selfies all the time. I feel like at this point he's lying, but some of my friends say I'm being paranoid. If he is lying, how should I prove it? Edit. He's not actually my boyfriend, he's just someone I've been seeing frequently. I just wrote that for the ease of the title. Felt it was worth noting that these past 6 weeks have been summer vacation, so he hasn't needed to be in class. He said he would get a new student ID when classes start. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Honey, you need to walk away. The red flags are waving in the breeze. Loudly. If he will lie about this, there's no limit to what he will lie about. Does he even work where he says he does? I've been to his office job and met his co-workers. So yes, I know he works 40 hours in an office. Let me tell you this from the perspective of someone who caught a liar. Once you catch them in a lie this big, the trust is just gone. You're always going to have it in the back of your mind that he's lying, even when he's telling the truth. Lying about being in medical school is a big lie. Yeah, this is incredibly sketchy. The empty computer and no schoolwork are the biggest concerns I have as a current university student. In my opinion, this deserves an immediate conversation involving an ultimatum. He comes clean and proves his status as a student beyond any shadow of a doubt, or you're freaking out of there. I think you know what's going to happen, and I'm really sorry in advance. Also, if you need a student ID to get on campus and lost his, how is he getting onto campus? If he's taking classes remotely, there would be no reason she couldn't sit in the room and watch/listen, so he must be going in. I've listened to this exact podcast. Seriously, this exact story. Run. Current season of Something Was Wrong. What happened to the podcast? Spoilers if you're listening. It's not finished yet, but he was totally lying, cheated on her, was controlling and abusive, got them into debt, and it sounds like the next episode will reveal how he stole her daughter. He had a second woman on his side. He made up even more ludicrous lies too. She lost her husband and kids because of him. Edited to add, she ignored everyone's warning and married him. The podcast takes place over years. And now for the update. So, the response was overwhelming and I'm glad I got confirmation on my suspicions because I felt like I was going crazy. I broke up with him over FaceTime. I didn't tell him the real reason, just gave a vague explanation about not being ready to date anybody. There are other things, in addition to my post, that I'm pretty sure he was also lying about. I didn't bring any of his lies up because honestly, I feel slightly scared of a person who would lie about things like that. He didn't take it very well and sent me a barrage of text trying to guilt trip me and also was borderline harassing me into meeting up with him. Apparently, he bought me a present and was trying to force me to take it. Overall, just really gaslighty and manipulative. I eventually just stopped responding, and I haven't heard anything in a few days. Hopefully never have to see or speak to him again. Thanks to you all for your response. Going forward, I'll be a lot more cautious about who I believe. Sounds like you dodged a bullet. This dude has failed in life narcissist written all over him. Read your entire story. I'm glad you're moving on. You sound extremely mature in your actions and I commend you. The gaslighting is just confirmation that you made a right decision. Also, can I just say, who logically believes that an ear has 30 bones? Coming from a physician, he was 100% lying. No one, and I mean no one, works in med school, especially the first 2 years. The most I've seen is classmates doing Uber during their 4th year in the evenings. It is impossible to have a 40-hour office job and go to med school. Even if all the classes were recorded and he would watch them when he got home, he would fail out. In med school, all my classmates were studying through the day, every day. The ones who treated med school like college failed out. The only times we would go out would be the Friday after an exam week. Yes, you heard me. Exam week. Maybe the following Saturday would be a day off. Then back to the grind. Even if he was in his 3rd or 4th year, considered the easier years, he would still have clinicals at least Monday through Friday and would not be able to hold down a job. There's a reason we're all in debt. Lol. Next story is titled, Update. My 28 female boyfriend, 32 male, told me a white lie for almost 3 years, and I'm not sure if it's a red flag. Original story. I'll try to make this as short as possible, but it's going to be long as hell because there is so much lying going on. My boyfriend and I have been dating for almost 3 years, living together for 2. We have a pretty good relationship, obviously with ups and downs, but we make it work and are happy. A little background on me / my boyfriend for context. I come from a single-parent home. My father was absent. My mother was / is by no means perfect, but she did her best with what she had. We were poor. Life was never easy for us, but we had each other. Since I was pretty young, I've wanted to pay her back someday. I've worked incredibly hard to be able to do so. I help her financially as much as I can and regularly pay her bills / send her cash. I'm also her only living child now as my brother passed away 5 years ago, which basically left me to help her. I don't care. I love my mother, and the right thing to do is to help her when she needs it. But it is stressful. This is relevant because my boyfriend described coming from a somewhat similar past, and it is something we have bonded over. Having the mutual experiences seemed to bring us closer. He told me also helped his parents financially, and we would often vent to each other about the stress it brings. I am not one to confide in many people, so having someone I felt like actually understood me was meaningful to me. So, here is where the lies come in, and I need someone to either tell me I'm not crazy and this is messed up, or that I'm crazy and this isn't a huge deal. I'm fine with either. When we met, my boyfriend lived in a condo in a pretty swanky part of the city. I live in the US Northeast. He told me he owned that apartment / condo. I found this to be interesting / odd because he was 28 at the time, and I know this property is upwards of $650,000 on the low end, and he was in an entry-level job for only like 2 years, so the numbers just didn't really add up. Whatever, maybe he's good at saving? But then since living together, I never once saw a piece of mail for a mortgage payment, electric bill, taxes, nothing. Not for 2 whole years. Very odd. Also, when we started living together, he didn't have his room rented out in the former apartment yet, so he was still responsible for that portion of the rent. He would send a Venmo payment to his mother on the 1st of every month for his portion. I don't own property, but I can't think of a scenario where I would Venmo my mother to pay the mortgage on a property I supposedly own. Getting more odd. He would then go to his parents' house for an afternoon and come back really upset. Usually when I would ask why, it was because they were having financial problems and he needed to help them out. I totally understood this and supported him. He literally has cried on my shoulders about this many times. He tried to start a company years back and ended up getting into debt somehow. He told me his debt was $17,000 and that he paid it off. I'm confused because I met him only 2 to 3 years after this post-debt accrued/company dissolved, and it was already paid off? He told me when he moved back home after the business failed, he was $17,000 in debt and living at his parents' house working at a minimum wage job. How someone with a minimum wage job pays off that much debt in 3 years? I'll never know. We got into a fight a few weeks ago and I finally had enough and confronted him about these things. Long story short, he doesn't help his parents. They actually pay his phone bill. And this was all a lie. He doesn't own that apartment. He didn't pay off that debt from his company. He initially told me his parents helped pay it off, and then like 3 minutes later came clean and said that his business partner paid it off, so I have literally no idea what the truth is there. And if anything, in my eyes, his parents are the ones who are financially supporting him. So now, I'm dating a 31-year-old man who doesn't pay his own phone bill, was lying to me and/or completely fabricating aspects of his life for 3 years. And then when confronted about it, continued to make up lies, and then came clean about them 5 minutes later. I'm obviously concerned that he could lie for this long, about fundamentally important things like our values and so on. I sincerely thought I would marry this man. He seemed to understand me like no one else, and to be a truly caring and genuine person. Now, I'm having a hard time rationalizing actually planning a life around someone who would not only lie about their background and family, etc., but also financial aspects. Aside from that, I now can't tell what is the truth and what is a lie. I've also noticed other things he has lied about, called him out on it, and he has denied it outright to my face. I see this as a form of gaslighting, as I know I'm not wrong, but he is trying to convince me otherwise. Am I overreacting? Is this a white lie that went haywire? Or is this actually a series of complete and utter BS used to manipulate me? And also, is it insane for me to actually consider a life with this man? Any advice is appreciated. Now for the top advice before reading the update. This isn't a white lie. This is a huge web of lies in which has built the foundations of your relationship. I would forever be wondering what else he's lied about. Get out! This is the issue for me. It honestly wouldn't be as big of a deal if this wasn't like a huge part of our relationship. The bonding and confiding in one another, I mean. I come from a harsh background, and I had a difficult life growing up. And it was very special to me to have someone who I thought could at least mildly understand. I've also told him so many painful and personal things while he was lying to me non-stop apparently. I mean, you still don't even know what he was coming back from his parents so upset about, do you? My guess is that his parents pay a lot more than his phone bill, and they're either trying to wean him off, which he's having tantrums about, or simply declining to throw even more money at him, which he's having tantrums about. None of these are white lies. White lies are harmless lies that make social interactions go smoother. This is a man who's had no problems lying to you for 3 years about his financial situation, and who only came clean because you're not an idiot and realized the numbers didn't add up. If you hadn't questioned it, how long would he have kept lying to you? And you already know this isn't just a white lie that got out of control. You say in your post that he lies to your face about other things. So no, this isn't a small issue. You're dating a guy who literally lies to you all the time about everything, including things that really affect you and your future. So yes, I think it is insane that you're still considering life with this man. And now for the update. My previous post got more attention than expected, so I figured I'd update. Well, it's over. As many of you suggested, I couldn't possibly build my life around someone who lied so pathologically. I initially agreed to work into a relationship, provided that my ex get therapy to work through why I felt compelled to lie about so many aspects of his life. I also requested that he come clean to his parents, my parents, and anyone else he lied to or embellished the truth to. He agreed to this, and seemed genuinely interested in working on things himself. I really wanted it to work out, and was willing to accept that maybe he was just wildly insecure, / had some attachment issues or something that caused him to act this way. I waited 4 months for the therapy and confessions to happen, and they never did. Not surprisingly. For those of you who were confused about how I didn't know he did not own this apartment for so long / thought I had never met his parents, I had met them many times. But to be honest, they're pretty cold people who I never really connected with that much, and was definitely not comfortable enough to be like, hey, is your son a pathological liar or is all of this true? On top of that, he also told a lot of these lies to his parents as well, so they wouldn't have been keen to what I was talking about anyway. It got to the point where basically anything that came out of his mouth seemed like a lie or at least a half-truth to me. Also, I lost respect for someone who could lie so easily and then not even feel guilty enough or any remorse to come clean about it. I'm pretty honest, almost to a fault. So the cognitive dissonance there that occurred from being with someone who had basically opposite values from me was tough. I'm sure there were a lot of other things he was hiding, but I don't even care. I've been single and living alone for a week, and to be frank, I'm killing it. I'm now responsible for 100% of my rent, and I barely have any savings left. But I still feel like a giant weight has lifted off my shoulders. Crazy how that works. I want to thank all of the people who gave me the hard truth straight up and encouraged me to leave. Even though it was all coming from internet strangers, it still helps to hear people tell you that you deserve more than what you're getting. I'm so happy. And I must be giving off a much better vibe because I've already had 2 dates and been asked for my number a handful of times. I'm a server at a restaurant, lol. I sound like a cocky a-hole, but god does it feel good to remember you're not as worthless as someone made you feel. Thanks, Reddit. And if any of you are in a relationship with someone who is like this, GTFO and don't look back. I sound like a cocky a-hole, but god does it feel good to remember you're not as worthless as someone made you feel. Not even a little bit. I'm so happy for you. Also, you should be proud of yourself. I agree with this so much, and Opie said it so perfectly too. You are amazing and strong and empathetic and kind and loving and honest, Opie. And now you're happier and confident too. That likely shines through when you talk to people, and only enhances what I can pretty much guarantee is your natural beauty. Of course you're killing it. Of course you're getting numbers and dates. You freaking rock, my friend, and you got this. Even though I don't know you personally, I'm very proud of you. BRB, crying. But seriously, thank you so much. I appreciate the kind words. I remember the story. I'm glad you broke up with him. You deserve better. Thank you. It's hard right now, but I feel better every day. I remember your post. It completely boggled my mind how this man could spin such a massive web of lies. And they were not even close to being white lies. Good for you. Looking back, I'm dying laughing at myself calling them white lies. Like, girl, what? But happy got out sooner rather than later. Thank you. Relationship advice. Update. I, 25 female, just got dumped by my 29 male boyfriend. He's now dating his best friend, 28 female, of 10 years. Original story. Sorry if this is long, but want to detail accurately. I just went through a breakup, and my ex is now with his best friend. I'd always had reservations with their friendship. She was always overly flirty with him and would stake her claim on him through passive-aggressive comments. I brought it up once in a cool-like manner, and he just said that's how she is with everyone. I let it slide for about a year because I didn't want to come off as insecure. Most men don't pick up on how women can be passive-aggressive towards each other, so I figured I'd take the high road and ignore her. He also never gave me a reason to even think that he thought of her like that. However, she threw him a surprise birthday party a week before his actual birthday and did not tell me or invite me. He was confused as to why I wasn't there, and she told him that I did not like his friends and refused to attend. He called me while he was there and drunkenly expressed how sad he was about my behavior. I could hear his best friend at the back basically cackling and yelling at him to not give me any more attention, and that I was a horrible girlfriend. The next day, I tried calling him but got straight to voicemail. My text went straight to green also, so I was sure he blocked me. Luckily, I am close friends with his sister, who coincidentally was also not invited to the surprise party. The best friend doesn't like his sister. His sister told my boyfriend everything from my point, but his best friend swears she invited me and sent me and his sister the paperless post, and it must have just been an accident/mishap. After that day, he started acting really distant towards me. I asked him if anything was going on with his best friend. He said no. He loved me and understood that the whole party thing was an accident. I tried to remain calm and told him that I don't like the idea of his friends thinking I dislike them, and even said maybe I should reach out to her and we could grab coffee. He was all for it, but she never texted me back. I made sure not to say anything negative about his best friend, and ultimately told him I agree, it must have been an accident, which I didn't think at all. 2 weeks later, he's still distant during that time. He sits me down and says it's over, after 2 years. I was calm, but asked what triggered this and asked if his best friend had anything to do with the breakup. He said that yes, she did, But he promised nothing physical happened with them while we were dating, but that he had developed feelings. He said that it just happened. They've been friends for over 10 years. So why didn't they date before? He said he never thought of her romantically until a few weeks ago. Afterwards, she made it very public that she won and that I'm a loser, and thank God their friend group doesn't have to deal my toxic behavior anymore, which I don't even care about. She's lesser than me, and it's very clear by her actions. I actually bumped into a couple of his friends at the bar a few weeks after we broke up, MF couple, and they mentioned how they and several of their other friends were bummed that we broke up because they thought I was fun and sweet and loved having me around. It definitely wasn't a conversation with nice pleasantries. I could tell they were genuine. I just don't understand how feelings change in such a short amount of time since they've been friends for 10 years. 1 week after we broke up, he's dating his best friend, and they're completely in love. I'm very hurt, but just trying to see it from another point of view since my ex won't really explain it to me or go into detail on how he all of a sudden fell in love. In my opinion, falling in love isn't so easy. You have to continually interact emotionally and romantically with another person to get there, which in my mind is a form of cheating. He was just so nice and proper during the relationship as well as during the breakup. It was completely respectful, as much as it could be. I just don't understand. How do these things happen? I have guy friends that I would never think to date, or more so speak to in a romantic sense wherein it's a possibility to fall in love. Thoughts? I genuinely do think that his feelings changed. And he wanted to explore another relationship and that he was really contemplating it for a couple of weeks before making a decision. Not sure what the antithesis was, but it obviously happened at the surprise party I wasn't invited to. I don't really want to hear the whole "he's an a-hole, you're better off without him" comments. We're broken up and done with, and I'm moving on. Just trying to figure out if other people have been in the same situation and how this sort of thing happens. Now for the top comments before reading the update. He cheated on you with her on that birthday party and has been avoiding you. It happened because he felt flattered by your attention. Don't think he didn't notice. He noticed and didn't care how it affected you. Now she won him. The chase is over and she'll get sick of him. I'll give it 1.5 years max. Edit. And it'll end with her cheating on him because she likes the thrill. Probably with another taken man. So just buy yourself some popcorn and wait until his sister calls you and tells you, "Girl, you want to know something juicy?" Yeah, I agree. She's a crap steerer for a reason, and will get bored of him and move on. He's very laid back, and 8 times out of 10 wants to stay home instead of going out. I'm a home buddy as well, so that never bothered me, but it's not her style. She craves attention. I think it happens because he was open to it happening. If a friend of mine threw me a surprise party and my husband wasn't there, I wouldn't think, "Oh wow, yeah, he must really hate my friends." That a-hole. I'd call him immediately and ask his side of things. He made it clear that he trusted her more than you, and for that reason, your relationship with him wasn't going to win out. I won't bother with a-hole comments and whatever, because you know all that stuff. You're just dealing with it now. But his girlfriend is sneaky. She got her man, but look how she did it. That's not a start based on mutual respect, kindness, and appreciation. She tricked him into it. He allowed himself to want to be tricked. That's just how life happens sometimes. There's not a lot of rhyme or reason to love. The surprise party in his mind probably flipped a switch for him, and she got more aggressive in pursuing him. 2 years together is a good amount of time. But honestly, it's not the longest relationship. Things can definitely still change. You missed some good red flags in the very beginning with her behavior, honestly. You also should have been more strong in your reaction to the surprise party. I would have flipped a goddamn crap if that happened. Oh, I 100% knew that this girl was manipulative and sketchy from the beginning. I just figured, okay, I brought it up once and he was pretty nonchalant about it. Not in a secretive way, but in an indifferent way. I figured, let the girl dig her own grave. I'll be above it and non-confrontational. Didn't work out in my favor, obviously. And now for the update. So I received a text from a random number. It was my ex. I blocked his normal number. He basically outlined how he missed me and had ended things with his best friend. He asked to grab coffee and talk it out and hopefully reconcile. He said, I didn't realize how much I'd miss you, and I've realized that you're the one for me. I'm so sorry about everything that's happened in the last month. You deserve better, but I'm hoping we can meet up and discuss and move past it. Wow. A whole 3 weeks? I'm genuinely still curious as to why he ended our 2-year relationship for this girl. I knew she was trouble, knew it wouldn't last, but didn't think it would be a measly 3 weeks. I'm fuming. He's essentially asking to get back together after sleeping with his best friend, and now he has clarity over the situation and figured out that she's not what he wanted. I still think he's the one of the nicest men I've ever met and fell victim to another girl's manipulation. But screw him. He's 31 years old. Do better. And just a PSA to anyone out there who would contemplate this type of thing: don't. Edit. I know it seems weird to say he is the nicest person ever. What I meant is, he is a good person and he massively messed up. I know he regrets it, as he should, but I wouldn't label him as a cheater or someone who played with my feelings. He got feelings for another girl, contemplated what to do, made a decision, broke up with me and proved it, then figured out it was the wrong decision. Him and I can't get back together because I will never trust him again. He made a decision to leave our relationship. It didn't work out for him with this other girl, but I can't trust that it wouldn't happen again. Simple as that. But I do think he went with his feelings and wasn't trying to deceive me or go around my back to cheat. That's all. No, we didn't get coffee. I told him to buzz off and blocked the new number. Okay, you guys caught me on the discrepancy on the ages. I was trying to switch up the ages in the title to maintain anonymity. He's 31, best friend is 30, and I'm actually 28. Keeping the title as is though. Damn. I gave it 1.5 years, but it wasn't even weeks. How embarrassing on his end. Also, translation: she was already cheating on me and entertaining other men. Edit. He's no victim. He knowingly did what he did and felt flattered by your actions and your jealousy. Good thing you didn't bet on them lasting that long. He's not a good person who massively messed up. Girl, he's a guy who was in a long-term relationship and wanted to fool around with someone who wasn't his girlfriend. Him breaking up with you was his twisted way of not cheating. He had his fun. Now he's over it and wants his girlfriend back. He thought you'd stick around for him when he got his best friend out of his system. He's not a good person. He's a prick. Good men do not do this. Good people don't treat people like this. Good people don't have such horrible best friends either. I'm sorry you went through this. Breakups are the worst, especially when they go down like this. Keep your head up. You seem cool. Keep your standards high and you'll find your guy. I'd be fuming too. He threw away a 2-year relationship for a 3-week fling with another girl, and now he wants to get back together? And no. That girl who won him looks like you're winning now. She showed her true colors, and while you lost a relationship, I'm sure she lost friendships, respect, and her best friend. Hold your head high. He lost one of the best things to ever happen to him, and now he really knows it. Plus, they'd known each other for 10 years. If he really wanted something to happen, he would have gone for it. She was just jealous that some girl was taking his attention away from her, so she decided to up her game. She'd probably been flirting with him and trying to make something happen for years. I think it's a case of he's just not that into you. Unfortunately, he was probably in a vulnerable position being drunk, then lied to about why the girlfriend wasn't attending the party. I'm sure he believed the best friend for a while. But after 3 weeks, he realized there was a reason they hadn't gotten together in the past 10 years. It's probably for the best this happened. She probably dodged a bullet in that one. He said I didn't realize how much I'd miss you, and I've realized that you're the one for me. I'm so sorry about everything that's happened in the last month. You deserve better, but I'm hoping we can meet up and discuss and move past it. OP, I'm waiting for the part where you laughed in his face and wished him well with his life. I still think he's the one of the nicest men I've ever met and fell victim to another girl's manipulation. Yes, he fell victim enough to dump you, immediately unzip his pants, and stick it into someone else before you had even had time to process what was happening. His actions are not the actions of a nice man. And quite frankly, even if he's nice, it unfortunately does not prevent him from being stupid. This guy isn't the guy you want in your life. He threw you away for a grass is greener situation, and is now trying to crawl back to you and realized it was seasoned with manure. Kick him to the curb and live your best life. Also, regarding your previous post, also take his friends. They may be the best part of the 2 years where he wasted your time. Trust me, I didn't entertain the conversation at all. I told him to buzz off and move on. No coffee, no meetup. We were done 3 weeks ago and we're done now. Moving on. Last story is titled, I, 28 female, discovered my boyfriend, 29 male, impregnated our landlord. I am sick beyond belief. I don't think I've ever felt this much pain in my life, and isolated to the point where I've had to seek advice on here. I truly never thought this would happen to me. My boyfriend, let's call him Kyle for simplicity, and I have had a really stable and loving relationship. And for context, I've lived most of my life in London, and I met him in London as well. He's American. He works in asset management, and we're both fairly traditional, so I work mostly freelance. But I don't really make even 1/3 of what he makes. Which was fine, as I planned on becoming a housewife and a primary caretaker. But this year, he was offered a job in New York City, where the pay is astronomically higher than he was making in London. And my whole life is in London, all of my family and friends. But I knew that this was going to open up doors for him, and that would be able to buy a home in the future and etc. So we moved right after Christmas to a really nice flat. Did not realize how expensive rent was here, by the way. And because of COVID, he works mostly remote, but sometimes he goes in and out of the office. He had his friends, so I realized that I also needed to at least try to befriend someone. But it was incredibly difficult because when we moved, there were still restrictions, and I wasn't actively working. But when we met our landlord, I thought she was great. Quinn for simplicity. We were almost the same age, and even though we didn't have too much in common, she was incredibly welcoming that we even went to breakfast and lunch sometimes. Kyle was happy that I had befriended her. As the months went by, Quinn and I would have some drinks at my place or I'd go to hers, and one time I went with Kyle and we got to know each other on a more personal level. She told me how dating felt so much harder at her age, and that she'd always had fertility issues in her family and was afraid that she was running out of time. And I sympathized with her because I had endometriosis and I also had a similar fear. But in the last 2 months, I would only see her maybe once a week as she claimed she was spending a lot of time with her aunt and so she was more busy than usual. I understood. 2 days ago, while Kyle was at work, I went to check the concierge for a package and I saw Quinn's aunt. I said hi and was polite that we spoke because I had briefly met her before. I asked her how Quinn was doing since I hadn't seen her last weekend, and her aunt said that she was feeling a bit sick, but it was just morning sickness. I was confused, but I guess my face made her think that I was deeply concerned, and her aunt said that morning sickness is just expected in the first trimester. I was floored. Not in an angry way, I was just caught off guard because I had no idea how or when she had become pregnant. In a way, I was kind of happy for her, but I also was slightly sad that she didn't tell me as I thought I was her friend. But I was excited for her, and I sent her a message congratulating her. When my boyfriend came home that night, I revealed to him that she was pregnant and how happy I was for her. And the look on his face, I have never seen anything like that in my life. The color literally drained from his face the way you would picture it happening in a cartoon, and he was almost gaping. I was extremely confused, but he gained his composure and went to shower. I was making dinner, and my mind was racing. I couldn't really focus, but I couldn't pinpoint why. After he showered and I finished cooking, I decided to lay on the bed for a while because I was feeling horrible. My boyfriend then said he needed to get some really important bills from our mail, and he left quickly. At this point, I felt so horrible, so sick, because something felt ridiculously wrong. The entire atmosphere had shifted, and I was completely unsettled. So I waited for him to leave and I followed him. It was all such a blur that I don't even remember walking to her floor, but I saw exactly what I instinctively thought I would. I hid behind the wall. At this point I was about to throw up. And they were arguing and I couldn't even hear what about because at that point I showed myself before running back to our flat. Kyle came after me, asking me to wait, to hear him out, but I couldn't even breathe. I felt like I was going to vomit and choke at the same time. My throat was so constricted that I couldn't even talk. And he was rambling on about how it happened 2 months ago and it was a mistake. He never intended on hurting me and it felt terrible. He said that it didn't mean anything, that Quinn literally meant nothing to him, and it was a one-time thing. And he didn't know she was pregnant, and he was having a hard time processing that she was even pregnant in the first place. I told him to sleep on the couch, and I practically cried into my pillow all night. It's been 2 days since. I haven't left my bed and I can't eat. It feels like it will just come up, and I haven't been able to speak to him since. He comes to the door and asks me to at least hear him out and give him a chance in that we can work things out. Quinn sent me a message that I haven't read. I've given up my entire life and moved to a foreign country, and my name is on the lease. If I break it, I can't afford to pay the rest off. And I think what's even worse is that I still love him. I hate him and love him at the same time, but I cannot believe it did this to me. Honestly, my life is over, and I do not know if I will ever recover from this. This was incredibly long, and I apologize for that, but I honestly do not know what to do next. Now for the top advice. I think your property management will let you break lease under the circumstances. I'd contact whatever company the rent money goes to and explain in as much detail as you like, but say you have to break lease because of extenuating circumstances. It'll suck, but you're going to be fine once it's over. Reach out to whoever you can for any support you can muster. Make that jerk pay for a hotel till you leave. Just do whatever you can to take care of you and get out of there. Also, Cal can choose to take on the lease only under his name. Changing names and leases in the US is easy, provided all the renting parties agree to it. Also, the ability to enforce you paying things if you leave the country is spotty at best. You may not be able to return to the US, but if you skipped the bill, the consequences like a bad credit score use a different system in the US and UK. Obviously, this would be a last resort if OP cannot get free of things and just needs to leave. More likely, Cal would still need a place to live, and it reflects badly on him to have any outstanding charges. So OP could probably leave without anything going on her credit report. I am going to suggest you call your parents and immediately start making preparations to move back home. The reason I say this is because at this point, there is way too much potential long-term damage to ever really come back from this. Think about it. Even if you do decide to forgive him and make this relationship work, what happens if this baby is born? That is his child. That woman is also the mother of his child. He is going to have to parent the baby or pay child support, and those two will forever be in your lives. A child that isn't yours? A woman that destroyed your relationship constantly there. That is way too much emotional trauma. I know you probably want to ask him all the typical questions those of who have been cheated on ask. Why? How could you do this? Do you love him/her, etc.? But trust me, cheaters rarely tell the whole story, and 99% of the time, even when they do, it's going to be information that is difficult to hear and will probably do more damage. Take some time to heal, reflect on your life, and start to try and develop yourself independently. You're rightfully grieving, but right now take some time to let it all out, then start making the steps necessary to leave. You are young. You don't need to be looking towards a future or marriage with someone who has shown you who they really are. Update. Boyfriend faked his death and called my reaction manipulative. Original story. Me and my boyfriend, I'm 21 female, he's 24 male. Together for 3 years. Live apart but have/had plans to rent together soon. Everything was perfect before this. Backstory. I have a history of self-harm. Have done since I was 11 years old. The last time I did it was 2 years ago. I have some brutal scars, but I'm doing much better, and I'm in therapy. It's been a while since I even had a urge. My boyfriend had an ex before me who played mind games a lot. I feel it's relevant as he sometimes thinks I'm playing games when I'm not. For example, he was wary when we started dating that I would self-harm for attention or do it to punish him. His ex would threaten things like that if he ever left her. I don't/haven't ever done this, and despite my struggles, I'm pretty good with being patient and communicative. Until this, I considered us to have a really healthy relationship. Main story. Boyfriend went out drinking with his friends. I usually hear from him as he gets home, around 2 a.m., to let me know he is home and safe, but I didn't hear anything last night. I figured he just forgot. No biggie, so I went to bed as normal. I woke up at 11 a.m. to a bunch of missed calls from his mother. They live together. I called her back and she texted at 1 p.m. that she couldn't talk. I was kind of worried and told her as much. She said my boyfriend didn't get home last night and was in a crash and didn't make it. This was super weird to me since I get on well with his mom and would never expect to be told this via text. After some more texting, I fully believed my boyfriend had passed away that morning, and I totally shut down. The people I lived with were all out that day, so I was alone. Grief set in immediately, and I had an extremely bad relapse in my self-harm. At that point, I didn't even care. I was just hurting so much, and my usual coping techniques just weren't doing their job. I listened to old voice notes of his, and even sent one telling him how much I loved him through the most unhinged sobbing I've ever done. Well, he arrived at my house 20 minutes later, saying it was a prank, since he got into a small bump and thought I'd get mad about him driving drunk, as well as about him mushing up his car a little. And him and his friends came up with this plan to just make me happy he was alright. So they took his mom's phone and the above happened. I obviously was thankful he wasn't dead, but I had a million other much stronger emotions. I was so angry he drove drunk. So angry he saw nothing wrong with it. So angry that he would lie about something so serious. It absolutely heartbroken that he let me sit in grief for over an hour until I sent a voice note that made him feel bad. Plus lots of other things I'm still struggling to articulate. He found out I harmed and flew off the handle. I said I punished him and turned a harmless prank into something much more serious and ruined the joke of it. He said I was guilting him for having fun, and now he can't trust I won't do it again. He even suggested I stay in hospital for my mental issues for a few weeks and crank up therapy. He said he can't leave me if he wants now, or else I'll act like this, just like his ex. I am beyond hurt. I probably should look into therapy if I'm still resorting to it, I admit. But this wasn't an everyday bout of anxiety or even breakup. I thought he died. I'm also very aware that his actions were massively awful and he is being so manipulative in the aftermath. How is it a punishment if I thought he was dead? I absolutely would not react like this if he just broke up with me, but I never said or hinted at that. Not really sure what to do now. My gut tells me to leave him over this, but I'm so unsure. Now for the top advice before reading the update. What a sick joke. You need to break things off ASAP. What a cruel thing to do. I can never even be friends with someone who did this. The worst part is that he did it to get away from the consequences of drinking and driving. He willingly and purposely hurt you to ease the repercussions of his actions. Let that sink in. Dump him, please. He's a piece of trash. He even took his mom's phone to make it look like she was in on it. That takes it to a whole new level of cruelty. OP, I would dump him immediately and tell his mom what he did. Make sure to actually talk to her so you know she actually knows what he did. Please listen to your gut. This is beyond horrible behavior, not a harmless prank. You deserve to be with someone who has compassion and respect for you. If anything, the boyfriend needs therapy. He was dead. You can't punish the dead. As it stands, if you don't need therapy before, having this BS pulled on you unleashed all sorts of things in your head, which required some working through. They are pranks, and they are pranks completely undeserving of the term. You weren't laughing before or after the revelation. In what world was this supposed to make you feel better? Go with your gut. Be done. There's no forgetting he did this. There's no forgetting how he made you feel. No decent partner does this. That wasn't a prank he pulled. It was a mind game with actual repercussions that he refuses to own. Like the above comment says, no decent partner does this. He is the one who needs help if he thinks his actions are in any way appropriate. Additionally, if he is drunk driving with friends who are encouraging this, then his overall judgment is severely impaired on more than one front. OP, be done with him. You've already mourned who you thought he was. Now celebrate getting away from who he showed himself to really be. Staying with him is only going to drag you back down and away from the strong recovery progress you'd made. Stay strong. Your boyfriend is a horrible person. What he did shows deep character flaws. The drunk driving is bad enough, the more so because he knew it was wrong and chose to do it anyway. But the harmless prank? That's just mean. So disrespectful and inconsiderate, made all the more so by your personal history. And speaking of the accident, did he leave the scene of an accident while he was driving drunk? Or was he late getting home because he got a DUI? He bumped into a fence post, so luckily nobody was injured. But the potential was there as well as the carelessness. I don't know if he was late or not, honestly. I think he planned this almost immediately, and not texting me all night is part of it. And now for the update. Long story short, I broke up with him for the following reasons. Drunk driving, endangering himself and others. Took his mother's phone and made me think it was her. Deception. Telling me he was dead. Deception/extreme emotional stress. Letting me think that for hours. I could list every negative trait for that one. Borderline sociopathic behavior. Not being sorry for any of these things. Telling me I'm too sensitive. invalidation, shifting blame, being mad at me for relapsing, and supportive and caring and kind. I still won't blame him for the relapse though, as many people here wanted me to. That is on me and I'm still going to therapy regularly for that. So, for those interested, I took a few days to myself. I did speak over the phone to his mom, and she was incredibly apologetic on his behalf. I taught her how to put a passcode on her phone. After that, we met up and I outlined the things I listed above. He seemed apologetic and sincere about all of them and listened to me well. Unfortunately, he didn't quite understand that being apologetic wouldn't get me to change my mind and ending the relationship. He got annoyed at me for ending it, and again told me I was dramatic and other invalidating arguments. Oh well, I said what I needed to say, and that's enough closure for me. Told me I was dramatic. The guy who faked his own death calls you dramatic. You couldn't hold a candle to this guy to draw mistakes. You made the right decision to dump him. Well, I'm glad you didn't buy the fake I'm sorry act. It's so often used by really manipulative people to convince you they have changed. And I'm glad you saw right through that BS. Good on you. Life is too short wasting time in relationships like this. Agreed. As one of the lovesick puppies that kept going back to awful relationships because he was sorry and wouldn't ever do it again. I don't believe I'm sorry anymore. Not for that. He sounds like a psychopath? 100%. So glad Opie has been firm on this decision. The guy's terrifying with his callousness. Nah, psychopaths don't know why what they're doing is wrong. Sociopaths know and do it anyways. My oldest friend, we met when we were 14 and we are going to our 40s now. He faked his death to get back at me. He's an untreated schizophrenic with frequent bouts of paranoia. And over the years, I could recognize the cycles and signs and adjust accordingly. I have been verbally attacked many times and tempted into fights that I refuse to participate in. We've always come through the other side though, you know. I never thought he would fake his death. There's no way he would ever take his antics that far. But that is exactly what he did. His aunt messaged me while I was on vacation from his phone, stating that he was found mauled to death by a bear. Long story short, 6 months went by and the story wasn't adding up. There were so many questions that didn't have answers, timelines that weren't adding up, this aunt that I had never heard of. I'm an ecologist who works in national parks here and there, and I kept abreast of bear attacks. None for him. No obituary shared by friends or family. You see where I'm going with this. He was estranged from his family for his refusal to get medicated, and I truly believe that they had him offed, or that it was offed by someone, and they were trying to hide it. I became investigative and paranoid and distraught. I took a hiatus from university in my senior year, went to therapy, quit my job, because I was so depressed and angry that this injustice took place, that his family didn't seem to care at all about his disappearance. 1 year went by and 1.5 years. I was beginning to recover myself when I get a text from his old phone number. I called it immediately because I thought someone was playing a cruel joke, and he answered. I'm trying to keep this short, so I'll skip what transpired mostly, but a key part was that he claimed to be the victim, asking me if I learned my lesson for not answering his phone calls while I was on vacation, gaslighting me into believing all of his issues were my fault because I never dated him, even though all the codes in the universe told him that we were soulmates. All that progress I did in that year and a half disappeared within that 10-minute call. It really screwed me up. I sympathize. I empathize. I'm sorry that you had to experience that. Cut the toxicity out of your life. Be strong for yourself. Move on. I lost my oldest friend that day, but truly, he wasn't a friend at all. Next story. I'm 30 female disabled and my partner, 33 male, punishes me by withholding help. We've been together for 13 years. We've lived together for 10. I'm disabled. I don't want to get into how, but I can't do most things for myself without any help. I can hardly walk in a straight line or without stumbling. I have no muscle or strength in my arms. My life involves never going outside except for doctor appointments and staying in bed most of the time. Sometimes I have to put my phone down because it's too heavy. I always have a headache and nausea. Always. We have so many arguments, and they're usually over small things. A lot of them are about him helping me. He doesn't refuse, but he will throw such a tantrum about things like taking the dog out or killing a bug flying around because I ask him to. For example, I'm scared to ask for anything. I know I'll hear a sigh, feet stomping, and a horrible remark. If my partner is cleaning something and I point out a missed spot, I get, "Do you want to do it?" Oh wait, I don't think it's fair. I'd do it if I could. I can't open bottles on my own. I can sometimes, but it'll take a long time and I'm tired afterwards. Just now I asked for some water and he sighed and got it for me. We just had an argument regarding finances, so he slammed it down and left the room. I noticed it was still sealed and closed. It seems like such a dumb thing to complain about, but he always opens bottles for me even if I don't ask. Except when he's mad. Same with opening doors for me. Going to the store to get something I need. Sometimes he won't even make us anything to eat because he's mad at me. I hear "do it yourself" in a smug voice at least once a month. You love hearing yourself talk, is the response when I try to talk about it. Is this abuse? What can I do? He's all I have, and I'm literally and figuratively trapped. Edit. I made it sound like I do nothing, but I do get up and help sometimes anyway, even if it hurts me. He's understanding and kind on good days. One wrong move for me, and it goes from 0 to 100 on a bad day though. Sounds like caretaker fatigue. Taking care of myself is enough work, but taking care of someone else for 10 years sounds rough. Not that it makes what is doing okay. It sounds like you're walking on eggshells. If leaving isn't an option, maybe there are things you could do to improve your situation. If you need something at the store, could you order it online instead? Same with food, maybe order in. A dog is a lot of work too, and I hate to even suggest it, but maybe look into rehoming it? That could help avoid more arguments about cleaning or taking the dog out. There are plastic grippers too that might help you open water bottles. Could you get yourself a food tray to use in bed to hold your phone? Counseling for the two of you would probably be a good idea. Other people mentioned in home care, which would probably be optimal in this situation, but I'm sure that's costly. Wishing you the best. This. I took care of a loved one when their health declined. I started getting snippy with them over little things. For example, they asked for a fork while I was literally getting one for them, and I felt so upset. Like, give me a second before asking. It blew up into something bigger than it needed to be because I was doing it all alone. I wish I had taken more time to myself to cope, but even showering myself was mentally exhausting after a while. I was depressed and going through the motions. I'm sorry he is speaking to you that way. Sounds like this is really difficult for both of you, and it is not your fault. I cannot imagine how difficult it must have been for you adjusting to life with a disability. And now your husband is burnt out and taking it out on you. Hopefully get some help for his burnt out and things turn around for you both. I apologize, and I don't mean this rudely by any means, but what is your partner getting out of your relationship? Is there even a relationship there, or has it maybe gone toward more of a caretaker type situation? In the best of circumstances and people with the best of intentions get worn down caring for family members or loved ones day in and day out. It's a lot, more than a lot of people realize. OP, you need home health, it sounds like, and your partner needs to attend some anger management classes, along with some therapy sessions. The therapy would probably be beneficial to you as well. There definitely needs to be changes made. It sounds pretty toxic and not healthy. If we aren't fighting, we fight several times a month, then we have a good relationship, seemingly. People who don't know our problems think we're a perfect couple, which just makes me sad, to be honest. We hang out all the time, be intimate, cuddle, the usual. It's just that most days he has to help me. Not like all day long, but many times a day. I know it's hard for him. I just wish he wouldn't punish or scream at me. Now for the last story. My 23 female boyfriend, 24 male, put me down after I jokingly referred to a co-worker as a work husband. So I talk to my boyfriend about work a lot like most people do, and I talk about my co-workers a lot. I frequently mention this guy, who I have no feelings for by the way, who's one of my best friends at work in addition to many other friends. My boyfriend joked about how we talk a lot, and I teased him and said he was like my work husband. My boyfriend paused for a moment, then said that a lot of guys aren't into the fact that I don't have that high of a libido, and that he was willing to overlook it unlike most men, and added, just let me know. It felt oddly personal, but at the same time maybe I hurt his feelings when I referred to the guy as my work husband. What do you think of this? Now for the advice. While his response leaves a lot to be desired, in his defense, you are throwing out a couple of signs that maybe you do in fact have a crush on this co-worker, and your joke only added another. Yup. Boyfriend's response wasn't called for, but so was calling someone else your work husband. Regardless of how it was meant, I feel like most people can agree that it's throwing out signals that you have feelings for this person, OP. Sounds like both of you have behaviors to apologize for. She totally does. You would never use that term in any other context. How many stories here about cheating start with "my work blank"? He interprets husband as being a more permanent, established relationship than boyfriend. You just downgraded him in comparison to your work colleague. Absolutely. The idea of a work husband is extremely disrespectful. Boyfriend probably should have responded with, "I guess you don't need a boyfriend then." He could have gotten his warning shot in without attacking a potential insecurity. My 24 female boyfriend, 24 male, wants me to lie and say it was me driving my car when actually it was him who had a single car accident. If it's proven it's him, he will probably lose his car insurance. I want to help him but don't know what to do. Original post. Earlier this morning, we were coming back from a party in my car, and my boyfriend was speeding and absolutely plowed into parked cars on the street in front of a donut shop. My car is totaled, and the other 2 cars probably are as well. The cops showed up in record time, and while we were separated, he told them it was me who was driving. The donut shop apparently had video and caught the whole thing. They told him that the video seemed to show him driving, but it wasn't clear, so they would take his word for it. The cops then wrote me 3 tickets for speeding, losing control of a vehicle, and reckless driving. I was so in shock that I didn't even know what to say, so I just signed the tickets. We got an Uber home and got into a huge fight, and I was just exasperated that he would do this to me. He reminded me that if he took responsibility for the accident, he would lose his job, and his car insurance would become unaffordable, so he wouldn't be able to get to work. I told him that my car is now gone, and my rates are going to skyrocket. He promised me he would buy me a new car and also help with my increased insurance rates. The accident was about 6 hours ago, and I still haven't called my insurance company to report it. Of course, the other 2 people whose cars were totaled have probably called, so my insurance likely already thinks I caused the accident and is preparing to raise my rates going forward. I'm so angry, and I have no idea what to do. I don't want my boyfriend to lose his job, but I also don't want to be screwed over because he was driving recklessly. I would really appreciate any advice. Now for the top advice before reading the update. No, do not go along with this at all. I'm an insurance adjuster, so here are the consequences for you, assuming this is in the US. 1. Your car, your insurance, is primarily responsible for the damages, injuries, etc., even if he was driving. By lying about who was driving, you are committing insurance fraud. This is a crime that can range from a misdemeanor to a felony, and they will prosecute you and your boyfriend. 2. When you're found to be committing insurance fraud, they will drop you. And you will have a hard time getting insurance because your name will go into a national database for fraudulent items. Forget high rates. Worry about being insurable at all. 3. If you're caught lying to your insurance company about fraud, they can deny your entire claim. All of it. Do you want to be responsible for paying for your car and 2 other cars? 4. Lying to the police can lead to charges for both you and him for filing a false report. Your boyfriend did this, so it's his responsibility to face the consequences, and they're going to be severe if you go along with this lie, especially if there's even vague video evidence. Clear this up immediately with the police, your insurance company, and try to get a copy of that video. And ditch the lying boyfriend. Am I screwed because I signed the tickets? I was so in shock at what was being told to me, I signed them without even realizing what I was doing. Honestly, I don't know. Call the officer who wrote them and ask. As I said, if they were suspicious already, that will work in your favor. But don't sit and think about it. Just fix it now. Why on earth would you cover for and love someone who has demonstrated complete and utter disregard for you? You do realize that covering for him is illegal, right? You've also set a precedent that his comfort and well-being are more important than yours. He shouldn't make you pay for his crime. It's his fault and his mess. Are you seriously going to let this giant mistake ruin your life with your insurance rates? Not to be a nag, but why were you 2 operating a vehicle that condition? An Uber would have been smarter and cheaper. He claims he wasn't drunk. I don't drink but was tired, so I was trying to sleep on the way home. How much did he drink during the party? Did he eat and switch to water or coffee an hour or more before you guys left? Do you have the money to pay for the damages to the other people's property? Being tired is just as bad as being drunk. Also, what are you gonna do now that you don't have a car? I'm not sure. We stayed at a party until about 8 a.m. and I had been ready to leave at midnight. But he wanted to hang out with his friends. I fell asleep in a guest room around 3, so I'm not sure what he did after that. All I know is around 8, he woke me up to go home. And about 15 minutes later, while I was sort of dozing in the car, I woke up to my side of the car being smashed in around me. If he breaks up with you, do you have others who can help ferry you around? Do you make enough to cover restitution on your own, along with rent and day-to-day living expenses? Also, since it's unclear if you'll come clean, do you make enough to cover all of this plus the increased insurance cost when you eventually get a new car, factoring in at-fault increase of hitting multiple cars? I ask because my mother once made sure to pursue an 8th-time drunk driver for totaling her car. If you take the fall, you'll be covering expenses for your car, person 1's car, and a person 2's car. No, not at all. I'm pretty broke and my parents hate my boyfriend so much. And that I'm with him, they have more or less written me off. So I don't even really have a place to go if I dump him, let alone all the stuff you are talking about. Now for the update. So basically, at the advice of this thread, I stopped posting and called my mom and dad, who I really hadn't spoken to since I moved in with boyfriend, and said I was leaving him. I was scared and begged to be picked up. This was about 1:30 a.m. They said they would be over right away. I had locked myself in the bathroom and my boyfriend must have heard me making the call because he started trying to beat the door down and I was terrified. When the door didn't go down easy, I could hear him smashing things out in the living room of the apartment and kitchen. I stayed on the phone with my mom while my dad called 911 on his phone. I stayed locked in the bathroom and he occasionally would try to break the door down and again. All this time I was crying and so freaking scared, and he was screaming and calling me every name in the book. We have neighbors with kids, and I heard the kids wake up and start crying. And then I'm pretty sure I heard one of the dads beating on our front door telling boyfriend to shut up. Cops showed up just before my parents and immediately put him in handcuffs and put him on a couch, and started taking statements from me and the neighbors. I came out of the bathroom and he looked like a raging chained up psychopath. Everything, and I mean everything in our apartment is destroyed. Walls, plates, pictures, TV, Xbox, ironing board, chairs. My clothes were thrown over the balcony. My makeup was smashed against the wall, and stuffed animals I was given as a baby were ripped apart. I have no idea how long it was, but it was crazy he did so much damage in such a short period of time. My dad and my mom showed up and my mom started bawling because she hadn't seen me in so long, and my dad looked like he wanted to end my boyfriend. But with the police there, he composed himself really well. We had to stay during the time the police took everyone's statement. It was clear he was going to be arrested for a ton of stuff. I started telling them what caused all this and the story from earlier in the morning. So the officer asked me to get the tickets, and it turns out the officer who wrote the tickets this morning is the guy from the night incident's direct supervisor. So they're going to talk today and if need be, maybe go back to the donut place and look at the footage. Then the worst thing of all happened. My mom was standing sort of by the door as they were taking boyfriend out in handcuffs. My mom gave him a really nasty look and he said something like, "If she goes home with you, you'll just have another who blows her brains out." My older brother ended himself when he was 17 and I was 10. My mom has never gotten over it. Neither have I really. My mom reached out and slapped him as hard as she possibly could. So then the police had no choice but to arrest her as well. They were nice about it and loosely handcuffed her and took her to one of the squad cars. So I got dressed and tried to pack up and salvage whatever I could while my dad went down to bail out my mom. One of the 3 police stayed in a parking lot in his car, just in case any of boyfriend's boys showed up while I got what I could. My mom was in and out pretty quickly and is facing a misdemeanor battery charge which will probably go nowhere. But as you can imagine, while my parents were very happy to get me, they were extremely angry at what had transpired not only yesterday, but the last 6 months or so. I have a very long road ahead to repair the relationship with them. My dad has been mostly silent, but he did take me to the family attorney so he could start working on the stuff from the accident. He said it shouldn't be too hard to get me out of the tickets, and women especially take the fall for husbands or boyfriends' accidents way more often than you would think. I will probably still have to show up for court, but by that time, the investigation to show my boyfriend was the one really driving should be concluded and I will be dismissed. However, the thing that really sucks is that my state is a permissive use state, meaning that my insurance has to cover anyone who is driving my car. There is a good chance that my insurance company will fight it out with its company for overall liability and it won't be as bad. But I'm still going to take a massive hit on car insurance premiums for a long time. Another good thing is the lease to the apartment is totally in his name, so I won't be responsible for any damages there. Plus, I didn't do anything to put holes in walls, and I can just walk away from that. This whole thing sucks so much, because even after all that happened, and as crazy as he knows, I know I still have feelings for him that I need to get in serious therapy right away to start dealing with. I can't have someone so destructive in my life who was willing to let me take the fall for all his crap and then scare the life out of me and threaten me. This is the third or fourth story I recall, where OP said they couldn't contact their parents because they cut ties due to significant other, but when OP calls, parents come immediately. I bring this up only to say, if anyone reading this finds themselves in a similar position, please do contact your parents. Obviously not if you had no contact because parents were toxic or abusive though. Chances are they've been hoping for the "I'm leaving my significant other" help call for a while. My ex-girlfriend beat the heck out of me outside a nightclub so badly I lost a tooth. I called my mom in hysterics about 1 a.m. and she was out the door heading my way in seconds. My mom is an amazing woman who always told me no matter what, she would be there if I needed her. Sorry for the ramble. This post brought back some not-so-fun memories. My aunt was in an abusive marriage and she cut her parents, my grandparents, and the rest of her family out of her life for a bit. One phone call for help, and everyone who could drove hundreds of miles to pack up everything she owned in that house, get her in with an attorney, find a storage facility for her furniture, told her work what was going on and help her give notice, and move her back in with her parents all in one day and all while the guy was at work. A lot of people are against stepping back from abuse victims, but sometimes you really need to for your own sanity. It's important to let them know that you'll still be there if they are willing to leave, but you aren't willing to stay involved in the day-to-day. Oh, thank God she left him. She really thought settling for an abusive prick like this was better than being alone? Did she even really love him, or did she just not want to be lonely? Abusive relationships are not always easy to leave. Last story. My wife accidentally traumatized our daughter. My wife and I made a mistake of getting married too young, so she constantly stressed with our daughter and chores. I don't help enough, so after work, the only thing I have time to do is make dinner and do laundry, while my wife has to do all of the hard stuff alone. She's always throwing this in my face, and most of the time I can accept it since it's a valid argument, but sometimes I just lose my patience and yell back. Last week was one of those times and I said something really hurtful, and she started smacking me, and I try to sit down because it usually makes her less angry, and then she just starts choking me. I can't remember if I tried to get away or if she pushed me. Either way, she told me I hit my head on a counter and then the floor and I passed out. My daughter was in the room and saw everything. She had never seen my wife hurt me in any way, so she was hysterical when I woke up because she thought I was gone. Things have been pretty neutral between me and my wife these past few days. But daughter hasn't moved past it. She keeps looking at the bruises on my neck and she follows me everywhere when I'm home. I know my wife feels like a horrible mother now, and my daughter won't talk to her unless it's necessary. I'm so afraid that this will become a core memory for her. Why did I even argue? I feel like such a crappy dad for not being able to keep my wife stable, but I'm just afraid of her and she knows it. I love my wife despite everything, but I don't know if my daughter will ever see us as truly happy together after this. Edit? I know rationally it's bad, but I've always been a dependent person, so I'm still holding on to the loving part of her, and I guess now it's gotten to the point where I feel like it's just part of being married to her. I'm going to try to answer some questions, but I don't want to be too long or too graphic. I might have a picture of a slap from years ago when it first started that I sent to my sister, but for some reasons we don't talk, and I never did that again. I decided to take the advice here and take a picture of my neck, but as of right now, I haven't reported anything. Sorry. I also had people ask what the documented issues were. It's mostly being forcefully committed and multiple self-harm and attempts to end things from my teenage years, to as recently as 2 years ago, as well as an anxiety and disorder I refused further treatment for. I guess I'm not always the most mentally stable, and I can still work with medication, but on paper it just looks really bad. Sir, you are being mistreated. You are also blaming it on yourself, common for domestic violence victims. Your entire post is excusing your wife's behavior. And this is a common occurrence because you know ways to calm her down. I'll give you the same advice I would give a wife being treated this way by a man. Leave. Take your child and leave. Visitation can be worked out later, but for now, both of you need to leave. File a police report and a restraining order. Then file for divorce. She didn't push you a little or smack your shoulder. She choked you unconscious, leaving bruises. And your daughter witnessed it. This has to end. Hopefully your wife will seek treatment and become a better person, but you can't wait around for that to happen. Once DV escalates to choking, I think it's 750% higher risk of being unalived by your partner. And leaving him there until he wakes up instead of calling an ambulance? That's insane. It is insane. But we know why she left him there. If she called an ambulance, they would want to know what happened to him, at least in order to know what treatment he needed. She might lie to their faces, but I bet the daughter wouldn't. Domestic violence has a tendency to escalate. Please plan a safe escape for you and your daughter. Your wife sounds like a monster. From here on out, the most likely cause of your passing is your wife. She needs actual help. DV is never okay. But you don't choke someone unless you want them gone, even if it's only momentarily. Right now, you're fine. But what about next time? Make no mistake, there will be a next time. This broke a seal. Figure out someone you trust and tell them what happened in writing. Include pictures of any injuries if possible. Unfortunately, you're a man, I'm presuming, so it may be a bit more difficult finding DV resources for you, as well as being incredibly difficult to get police to take you seriously should it come to that. So I'd start preparing now to leave at a moment's notice, even if you plan on counseling. Be safe, OP.